Welcome, weary travelers of the twilight realms, to the shadowed sanctum of Throne of Nightmares. Here, in this ethereal chamber where the veil between the living and the forgotten thins to a gossamer thread, I serve as your eternal host, a spectral sentinel guiding you through the labyrinthine corridors of history's most accursed tales. We delve into the forsaken archives where bloodlines dissolve into ethereal mists, institutions crumble beneath the weight of their own malevolent secrets, and entire families evaporate like dew under a merciless sun, only to re-emerge as vengeful phantoms that claw at the fragile barriers of your reality. These are not mere stories, they are invocations, summonings of the damned that linger long after the telling, whispering in the quiet hours when sleep evades you. Tonight, we exhume a narrative so profoundly grotesque, so entwined with the primal horrors of human survival, that it has been entombed beneath centuries of deliberate oblivion. We unveil the butcher who sold human meat in the town square, the Feast of Hollow Market. This is a chronicle etched in blood and bone, a symphony of starvation and savagery that resonates through the ages, reminding us that beneath the civility of society lurks a ravenous beast, ever hungry, ever waiting. Envision, if your mind can bear it, a forsaken hamlet cradled in the bosom of foreboding hills, where the earth itself seems to exhale a perpetual fog that clings to every surface like the breath of the deceased. Hollow Market, a name that once evoked visions of vibrant commerce, stalls overflowing with harvest's bounty, the clamor of bartering voices mingling with the lowing of cattle and the cheerful ring of coins. But in the grim annals we explore, it transforms into a moniker of desolation, a hollow void where the essence of humanity was bartered away for fleeting sustenance. The year was 1847, a time when the Great Famine gripped the land like the skeletal fingers of death itself, rendering fields sterile, rivers parched, and the populace into gaunt spectres haunting their own homes. It was into this cauldron of despair that an enigmatic figure materialized, as if conjured from the mists themselves. Elias Crow, the butcher of our nightmare, arrived not with fanfare but under the cloak of a stormy eve, his wagon groaning under an enigmatic cargo, wheels carving deep ruts into the muddied paths leading to the town square. He was a man of indeterminate origin, his features chiseled by winds from distant, cursed shores, perhaps the rugged cliffs of Cornwall or the peat-bogged moors of Ireland, land steeped in ancient folklore of flesh-eaters and shape-shifters. His presence was an anomaly in a world starved of hope. He bore with him slabs of meat that gleamed with an unnatural vitality, their crimson hues promising nourishment in a landscape devoid of life. But heed this warning, dear listeners, this is no fable of redemption or moral triumph. This is a descent into the abyss of cannibalistic communion, where the butcher's blade severed not just flesh, but the very threads of morality that bind us. In Hollow Market, the town square became a profane altar, where neighbors unwittingly partook in a feast of their own kin, the meat tender and succulent, masking the horror beneath its savory allure. As we embark on this odyssey, allow the atmosphere to envelop you, the chill of the fog seeping through your skin, the gnawing hunger twisting in your gut, the distant echo of a cleaver's thode reverberating like a heartbeat in the dark. Let us commence with deliberate slowness, as one might approach a slumbering predator, lest we awaken its fury prematurely. Picture the dawn breaking over Hollow Market, a reluctant sun piercing the veil of mist that blankets the cobblestone square. The stones, worn smooth by generations of footsteps, now glisten with dew that carries the faint, acrid scent of decay from the surrounding fields. Stalls line the perimeter, their wooden frames sagging under the burden of neglect, canvas awnings tattered like the sails of ghost ships. Vendors, once boisterous and full, cheeked, now huddle in threadbare coats, their faces etched with the lines of famine. Eyes sunken into shadowed sockets, skin stretched taut over protruding bones. The air is heavy, laden with the odors of desperation, the sour tang of unwashed bodies, the musty rot of mouldering bread crumbs scattered for birds that no longer come, and underlying it all, the metallic bite of blood from the butcher's domain. Elias Crow positions himself at the square's epicenter, his stall a crude edifice of rough, hewn timber, adorned with hooks from which dangle chains that sway gently, as if anticipating their gruesome load. He is a towering figure, lean yet imposing, his frame clad in a leather apron stiffened with stains that could be interpreted as rust or the remnants of countless slaughters. His hair, black as raven feathers, falls in unkempt strands over a forehead marked by a jagged scar, a memento perhaps of some primordial confrontation. Elias's eyes are the most unsettling aspect, obsidian orbs that absorb light rather than reflect it, giving the impression of bottomless voids where secrets fester. When he speaks, his voice is a low timbre, resonant like the rumble of thunder over distant hills, carrying an accent that defies pinpointing, a blend of old-world dialects that evokes forgotten rituals and ancestral curses. He arrived without announcement, yet his presence filled the void left by the famine's ravages. The Great Hunger, as chronicled in the yellowed pages of history, had transformed prosperous farmlands into barren wastelands, potatoes blackening in the soil like diseased hearts, livestock collapsing in emaciated heaps, their bones protruding like accusations against the indifferent heavens. In this crucible of suffering, Elias unfurled his offerings with the precision of a ritualist. Slabs of meat, marbled with fat that shimmered invitingly, were laid upon his table, steaks cut thick and juicy, sausages coiled in glistening loops, roast that promised to melt upon the tongue. The sight was mesmerizing to the starved inhabitants, colors vivid against the grayscale pallor of their existence. Whispers rippled through the crowd as the first curious souls approached. Mrs. Agnes Harrow, a widow whose husband had succumbed to the famine's grip months prior, was among the pioneers. Her 3 children, frail shadows with bellies swollen from malnutrition, clung to her skirts, their eyes wide with a mixture of fear and longing. Agnes's hands trembled as she extended her last possession of value, a silver locket engraved with faded initials, a relic of happier times. What manner of meat is this?" she inquired, her voice a fragile whisper carried away by the wind. Elias's lips curled into a smile that was all teeth, no warmth, a predator's grin. "The finest cuts, madam, sourced from the wilds beyond these cursed hills, beef, pork, whatever sustains the soul. It will banish the hollow from those young ones' eyes." His words were laced with an undercurrent of something unspoken, a promise that bordered on incantation. That evening, as Agnes kindled a meagre fire in her cottage hearth, the meat sizzled in her pot, releasing aromas that permeated the thin walls, rich, savory notes intertwined with a subtle sweetness that evoked forbidden fruits. The stew was devoured with ravenous abandon, spoons clattering against bowls, the children's cheeks flushing with color for the first time in months. By morning, the tale of Elias's miracle spread like wildfire through dry tinder. Neighbors congregated at doorsteps, exchanging hushed accounts. "It filled me like nothing else," one said. "A warmth that seeps to the bones," another agreed. Soon the square pulsed with renewed, albeit eerie, vitality. Queues snake-eat before Elias's stall at first light, townsfolk bartering heirlooms, tools, even sacred tomes for portions of his bounty. The seamstress offered her finest needles, the blacksmith his hammers, the vicar a leather, bound Bible yellowed with age. Elias accepted all with that same enigmatic smile, his hands moving with deft efficiency, wrapping parcels in waxed paper that crinkled like autumn leaves. Yet, even in these early days, fissures of unease began to appear. Old man Whitaker, a grizzled veteran of forgotten wars, sampled a sausage and muttered, "Too rich for beast, this. Tastes of something human." His words were dismissed as the ramblings of age, but they planted seeds in fertile minds. Young Leela Thorne, the baker's daughter. "No, wait, in our tale, she is the physician's kin," lingered at the periphery, her sketchbook capturing the scene, the curve of a rib bone, the glint of fat on a chop, the hollow gazes of the buyers. Disappearances, subtle at first, wove into the fabric of daily life. Vagrants who begged at the market's edges vanished without trace, their absence attributed to the nomadic call of the road. But as weeks bled into months, More prominent figures faded: Tom the miller, last seen delivering sacks to Elias's wagon; Sarah the herbalist, her cottage found abandoned, herbs wilted on the sill. The fog, ever present, seemed to thicken in complicity, muffling cries that might have echoed in clearer air. Children's games evolved into ominous chants, skipped to the rhythm of jumping ropes. Butcher, butcher, in the square, meat so red beyond compare. Eat your fill, don't ask why, or in the night, you'll hear the cry. Their laughter rang with a hollow timbre, as if the innocence was being leached away. Dreams afflicted the consumers, nightmares of being chased through labyrinthine forests by figures wielding gleaming blades, or of banquets where the dishes wreathed with life, revealing faces of the missing. Dr. Elias Thorne, a man of science amid superstition, documented these anomalies in his journal, pages filled with spidery script. Patients exhibit unnatural vigor post-consumption, yet their eyes betray a profound terror. One spoke of tasting memories in the meat, flashes of lives not their own. The doctor, with his wire-rimmed spectacles and coat smelling of laudanum, sensed the gathering storm, but the town's dependency grew like a malignant vine. As we pause at the threshold of deeper revelations, feel the weight of the atmosphere pressing upon you. The fog's cold embrace, the tantalizing scent of forbidden sustenance wafting from imaginary stalls. Elias Crow was no mere opportunist, he was the harbinger of a curse, a bloodline steeped in ancient rites of consumption. The feast had commenced, but the true horror lay in the realization that every bite bound the eater to the butcher's dark legacy. A pause for atmospheric sound. Distant thunder rumbling, mixed with the wet thud of a cleaver on wood, echoing like a summons from the depths. The introduction has drawn you into the web, but the strands tighten as we venture forth. Brace yourselves, for the main narrative awaits, where the veiled tears and the nightmares bleed into reality. We now step boldly into the heart of the nightmare, where the tale of Hollow Market unfolds its gory petals, revealing the thorns beneath. It was in the crisp autumn of 1847 that Elias Crow first anchored his malevolent presence in the town's desolate soil. The leaves had turned to hues of blood and flame, carpeting the ground in a macabre tapestry that mirrored the crimson of his wares. The wind, laden with the chill of impending winter, carried the cries of crows that wheeled overhead like souls in torment, their calls a dirge for the doomed. Hollow Market itself was a relic from bygone eras, a cluster of grey stone buildings encircling a central square, their roofs thatched with straw that sagged under the weight of perpetual dampness. The forests encircling the town pressed in like watchful guardians, their ancient trees whispering secrets in the breeze, legends of lost travelers and beasts that walked on two legs. The square, once a hub of life, now echoed with the hollow footsteps of the afflicted, their bodies bent by hunger, spirits fractured by loss. Elias's arrival was shrouded in mystery. His wagon, drawn by a horse as gaunt as the townsfolk, creaked into the square under a sky bruised with storm clouds. He unhitched the beast with deliberate movements, his hands, broad, veined like rivers on a map, fingers tipped with nails ground short from labor, working the straps with efficiency. By dawn's grey light, his stall stood assembled, a banner of faded cloth proclaiming, "Crow's fine meat's sustenance for the soul." The irony of those words would later haunt the survivors like a persistent spectre. Let us acquaint ourselves with the pivotal figures entangled in this web of woe. Elias Crow, the enigma at the core, appeared in his mid-40s, though time seemed to have etched him unevenly, wrinkles deep as furrows around his eyes, yet a vitality in his step that defied the famine's toll. His face bore scars that told unspoken stories, thin lines across his cheeks, as if raked by talons in some nocturnal struggle, and a prominent gash above his brow, which he dismissed as a youthful misadventure. When queried, his attire was practical. Boots caked with mud from unknown paths, trousers patched at the knees, and that ever-present apron, its surface a canvas of dark stains that shifted in the light, suggesting layers upon layers of blood. His voice, when he deigned to speak, was a resonant baritone, accented with traces of distant lands, perhaps the Celtic fringes where old gods still lingered in folklore. He claimed no family, no ties, but rumors swirled of a cursed bloodline, ancestors who practiced forbidden arts, harvesting flesh in times of scarcity to appease ancient deities. In the shadow of his stall resided the Thorne family, anchors of rationality in a sea of superstition. Dr. Elias Thorne, a widower whose wife had been claimed by childbirth years prior, practiced medicine from a modest clinic adjacent to the square. His hands, stained with the inks of remedies and the blood of failed surgeries, trembled slightly now from his own weakening state. He was a man of books, his shelves sagging with tomes on anatomy and herbology, his mind a bastion against the encroaching madness. His daughter, Leela Thorne, at 19 years, was his assistant and confidante. With hair the color of harvest wheat tied in a practical braid, and eyes green as the forests that hemmed them in, she possessed a spirit unbowed by hardship. Leela's curiosity manifested in her sketches, detailed renderings of the market's denizens, capturing the play of light on starved faces, the curve of a hand reaching for sustenance. Mayor Harlan Graves represented the town's crumbling authority, a rotund figure whose girth had deflated like a punctured balloon under the famine's assault. His jowls quivered with remnants of former pomposity, his family line tracing back to Hollow Market's founders, a bloodline rumored to be tainted by greed, ancestors who hoarded grain during lesser shortages, cursing their descendants with insatiable appetites. His wife, Beatrice, a wisp of a woman with eyes sharp as needles, managed their household with iron efficiency, her devotion to the mayor bordering on fanaticism. The unfolding events commenced with subtlety, like the first drops of a storm that would flood the land. On the inaugural market day, Elias unveiled his array with theatrical flair, lifting cloths to reveal the bounty sausages linked in glistening chains, their casings taut with filling, ribs arched like the bones of some mythical beast, mincemeat ground to a fine, rosy paste, scented with herbs that masked any underlying oddity. The prices were bartered, no currency demanded in a world where coin had lost meaning. Tools, jewelry, clothing exchanged for parcels wrapped in oiled paper. Agnes Harrow's transaction set the precedent, her locket glinting in the weak sun as it passed into Elias's palm. The meat's preparation that night transformed her cottage into a heaven amid hell. Flames dancing in the hearth, the sizzle of fat, the aroma wafting to neighboring homes, drawing envious glances through cracked windows. The children's renewed vigor the next day fueled the frenzy. Soon, the square teemed with eager buyers, the air buzzing with murmurs of gratitude. However, anomalies surfaced like cracks in ice. The meat resisted spoilage, remaining fresh in larders where other foods molded overnight. Animals recoiled, stray dogs bared teeth at offered scraps, cats hissed and fled as if sensing a predator's mark. The dreams intensified. Leela's journal entries grew frantic, describing visions of forests where trees bled, their sap tasting of salt and iron, voices urging me to partake or perish. Tension mounted as winter's fingers gripped the land, snow blanketing the square in a white shroud that muffled sounds but amplified suspicions. The forests became impenetrable barriers, branches intertwining like conspiratorial whispers. Disappearances escalated. Old Jem the beggar, haggling one day, gone the next. Tom the miller, his flour delivery his last act. Sarah the herbalist, her knowledge of potions perhaps too threatening. Leela, drawn by an inexplicable magnetism, observed Elias from afar, noting the empty wagon arrivals that miraculously overflowed by dawn. One twilight, as the sun dipped below the hills in a blaze of red, she approached. "The source of your meat, tell me truly," she demanded, her voice steady despite the pounding of her heart. Elias's gaze locked on hers, distorting her reflection in those dark pools. "From the bountiful earth, miss. From those who give freely so that others may endure." His words hung heavy, laden with omen, as the fog rolled in thicker, swallowing the square. As this first part of the narrative crests, the foundations of horror are laid. The town, seduced by satiation, ignored the encroaching shadows. In Elias's barn on the town's outskirts, under night's cloak, the true work transpired. The cleaver's descent, the parting of flesh, a low chant that might have been prayer or lament. The feast swelled, and Hollow Market's soul teetered on the brink. Deeper we delve into the festering core where conflicts erupt and hauntings manifest, the fog of Hollow Market now a shroud for the unspeakable. Winter's iron grip had descended by mid-December 1847, snowdrifts piling against stall walls, the square a frozen arena where breath hung visible like spectral exhalations. Elias's stall defied the cold, steam rising from cauldrons of mulled stew offered as enticements, the center siren call to the shivering throngs. The first overt clash ignited from Dr. Thorne's growing alarm. His journal, now a tome of dread, catalogued symptoms. Consumers exhibit addiction, like withdrawal when deprived, tremors, night sweats, hallucinations of feasts turned fall. One blustery evening, he stormed into the Red Lion Tavern, the town's last bastion of communal warmth, brandishing a bone shard from his supper. "This is no animal relic," he proclaimed, voice echoing off beam ceilings. "The articulation is human. Fema, I swear it!" "Crow feeds us the flesh of our brethren." Silence descended like a pall, broken only by the crackle of the fire. Mayor Graves, ensconced in his corner booth, chuckled dismissively, his laughter forced. "Thorne, you've let the hunger cloud your judgment. Elias is our savior, not some monster from tales." But the accusation lingered, fermenting doubt. That night, fueled by ale and fear, a mob coalesced, torches sputtering in the wind, pitchforks and axes gripped in numb hands. They marched to Elias's barn, a ramshackle structure on the forest's edge, its doors barred against the night. Leela, torn between paternal duty and a morbid fascination with Elias, slipped away to alert him. Navigating the snow-swept paths, she entered through a loose plank, the interior a realm of shadows. Hooks swayed from rafters, burdened with shrouded forms that dripped viscous fluid onto straw matted with dark stains. The air was thick, redolent of coppery blood and pungent herbs, sage perhaps to conceal the rot. Elias stood at his block, cleaver mid, swing over a bundled shape that emitted a faint, gurgling sigh. "You intrude on sacred work," he intoned, not glancing up. Leela's heart hammered as she whispered, "They come for you, Father leads them." "What madness is this?" He turned, lantern light casting grotesque shadows on his scarred visage, eyes reflecting not anger but resignation. "Not madness, necessity. The famine devours all, I merely redirect the consumption. The weak offer themselves, their flesh sustaining the strong. It's an ancient pact, my bloodline's burden, fragments of truth spilled forth amid the storm's howl outside. Elias's ancestors were reapers, druidic outcasts who, in primordial famines, performed rites of sacrificial cannibalism to restore land's fertility. Exiled, they wandered, adapting their curse to modern woes. In Hollow Market, he selected the ailing vagrants, the terminally ill, offering euthanasia in exchange for their bodies. "They consent," he claimed, whispering thanks as the blade falls. But Leela's gaze fell on a glinting object amid the bundles, Agnes Harrow's locket, the widow now among the missing. Horror bloomed as the mob battered the door. Chaos rained flames from torches ignited hay, the barn becoming an inferno. Elias wielded his cleaver with lethal grace, felling 2 assailants in sprays of arterial blood before vanishing into the woods, a trail of crimson footprints marking his flight. The town reeled in the aftermath, paranoia spreading like plague. Neighbors scrutinized each other over fences, bellies aching from the sudden dearth of Elias's meat. Apparitions manifested, ghostly figures of the consumed, their faces pallid and accusing, tapping at windows with bony fingers, mouths forming silent pleas. Dr. Thorne, racked by guilt for igniting the powder keg, succumbed to illness, his body cannibalizing itself in ironic mimicry. Leela, plagued by visions, ventured into the forest's embrace, guided by ethereal whispers. She found Elias in a moonlit clearing, encircled by crows pecking at his wounds. The meat was laced, he confessed raspingly, with belladonna and mandrake to induce bliss and sure return. Once tasted, the soul craves eternally. The narrative's zenith erupted in the square under a lurid blood moon. Elias returned, a vengeful wraith, slaughtering Mayor Graves amid the gathered crowd, carving him with ritualistic precision. "Partake of your leader," he roared, as pandemonium ensued, screams piercing the night, fires spreading from stall to stall. Leela, armed with resolve, confronted him, plunging his own blade into his chest. As he collapsed, gasping, the hollow, indoors, the town immolated, flames consuming the cursed market. In the smoldering ruins, the curse persisted. Survivors wandered, haunted by insatiable cravings, some driven to self-consumption in madness. Hollow Market faded into legend, a cautionary spectre. To anchor our nightmare in reality's soil, we excavate the historical and cultural bedrock, blending verifiable chronicles with the eerie tendrils of folklore to forge an unsettling verisimilitude. Cannibalism, humanity's ultimate taboo, emerges not as aberration, but as a recurring motif in times of extremity, a dark mirror reflecting our species' fragility. The Great Irish Famines 1845-1849, dubbed An Gorta parallels Hollow Market's affliction with chilling accuracy. Potato blight decimated the staple crop, leading to over 1 million deaths and mass emigration. Contemporary accounts, suppressed by Victorian propriety, allude to cannibalism in County Mayo. Families reportedly exhumed graves for sustenance. In Clare, travellers vanished, their fates whispered in pubs. Diarist William Carleton chronicled the hunger that turns men to beasts, echoing Elias's descent. Cultural trauma persists, Irish folklore teems with famine spirits, Pika-like entities luring the starving to illusory feasts of kin. Across oceans, the Donner Party Expedition 1846-1847 exemplifies survival cannibalism's horror. 87 pioneers, snowbound in the Sierra Nevada, resorted to consuming the dead after livestock perished. Journals detail the grim process: flesh flensed from bones, organs boiled in desperation. Tamsin Donner's letters speak of the taste that haunts dreams, mirroring our tale's addictive quality. Descendants bear psychological scars, bloodlines shadowed by stigma, institutions like museums preserving relics as warnings. In Europe, post-World War I Germany birthed the Butcher of Hanover, Fritz Hamann, executed 1925, who murdered young men, dismembering them and selling meat as pork in black markets amid economic collapse. Witnesses recounted the hoard's sweetness in purchases akin to Elias's herb-laced offerings. Legends amplified buyers plagued by visions of the slain. Cultural folklore evolving to include meat ghosts haunting consumers. Indigenous myths enrich the tapestry. The Algonquian Wendigo embodies famine-induced cannibalism, a spirit possessing the eater, transforming them into insatiable monsters. Tall, emaciated with hearts of ice. This resonates with Elias's cursed bloodline. Druidic echoes in Celtic lore, where priests consumed sacrificial victims for divine insight, institutions like Stonehenge sites tied to such rites. Medieval sieges bred similar horrors during the 1189-1192 Third Crusade. Crusaders in Acre allegedly ate Muslim captives. The 1243 siege of Montségur saw Cathar heretics accused of cannibalistic rituals. Witch trials institutionalized by the Inquisition, branded accused with flesh-eating charges, blending fact with fear-mongering folklore. Vanishing families feature prominently. Scotland's Sawney Bean clan, 16th century, a family of cannibals devouring wayfarers in caves, their market, a lair of horrors. English ballads immortalize them, warning of bloodlines doomed to hunger. In Polynesia, Maori legends of mana, consuming warriors parallel. Cultural taboos against Kuru-Prion disease from cannibalism, enforcing societal norms. This fusion of history and myth lends our narrative authenticity. The famine's hollow, not mere metaphor, but a lived terror. Institutions failing as morality erodes, folklore serving as collective memory's guardian. Hollow Market stands as archetype, a chilling reminder that in scarcity's grip, humanity's veneer cracks, revealing the beast. Peeling back the narrative's flesh, we expose the symbolic sinews and psychological marrow, connecting Hollow Market's horrors to universal terrors, cultural wounds, and the shadowy recesses of human nature. At its core, the tale symbolizes consumerism's rapacious essence, Elias's meat as metaphor for exploiting others' essence for personal gain, echoing capitalist critiques where labor or life is commodified, devoured by the market's maw. Psychologically, it invokes Freud's Thanatos, the death instinct intertwining with Eros in survival's dance, hunger as it unleashed, superego suppressed by necessity. Jungian shadows manifest in Elias, the collective unconscious archetype of the Devourer, a trickster, provider whose gifts corrupt. The addictive meat represents dependency cycles, akin to substance abuse, where initial relief spirals into damnation. Thematically, it probes duality, civilization's fragile facade over primal savagery, famine stripping pretenses to reveal Hobbesian brutality. Universal fears of contamination surface, cannibalism polluting the soul, breaching taboos that define humanity, as in Mary Douglas's purity theories. Cultural trauma links to postcolonial wounds, Ireland's famine as imperial neglect's legacy, generational PTSD manifesting in literature like Joyce's works, where hunger haunts psyches. Ominously, it questions morality's relativity. In extremis, does consent justify horror? Elias's Pact echoes ethical dilemmas in bioethics, like organ harvesting. Human nature's darkness emerges, greed in graves, curiosity in Leela leading to complicity. Intellectually, it critiques institutions, the market as cursed agora, where commerce devolves into carnage, reflecting neoliberal failures where inequality breeds desperation. Broader connections to modern crises like climate-induced famines, where resource scarcity might resurrect such nightmares. The tale warns of repressed urges resurfacing, bloodlines carrying ancestral sins, as in epigenetic studies of trauma inheritance. Maintain the eerie tone. What if the hollow resides in us, a latent craving awakened by whispers in the dark? As the embers of our tale dim, hollow market spectre lingers, a testament to famine's feast and humanity's hidden hungers. Elias's legacy endures in whispers, a curse upon bloodlines, a haunting of institutions. Ponder this in your own square. When shadows lengthen, might the butcher return? Sleep, if you can, but heed the gnaw within. The throne awaits,